Hello, I am Sudarshana Starshine Star. Welcome. I hope all of you are doing very well. It is a beautiful Tuesday evening. It is September 9th, 2025. I have a YouTube channel called It's the Dazzling of the Light, or you can just go to YouTube and type in at Sudarshana Starshine Star to access my, I think it's 264, could be 265 clips there, podcasts that I have there. They're all very interesting and juicy. Some of them really hot and spicy juicy because I don't do the mundane. And it's free. So why not join my YouTube channel and hit the notification bell? And why not like, share, and subscribe if you find that you like it? I really appreciate you. Thank you so much in advance. I always open up all of my clips with the 3 opening prayers in Sanskrit and Telugu. And I do this to bless, uplift, purify, and protect you, me, and this clip. They are the Guru Mantra, the Ganesha Mantra, and the Gayatri Mantra, and they are short. But before I do this, I command on the sacred and holy divine blood of Jesus the Christ, Yeshua, to flow over all of us and this podcast and this social media and all of you and all of your beloveds and all of your social medias, to really cleanse everything of all negativity in thought, word, and deed. Please cast out all satanics, all satanic attachments, cast out all demonics, all demonic attachments, cast out anything that is low or heavy or negative vibration. And please, Jesus the Christ, bless us with the highest and the best, according to thy will and according to the individual will of any listener here, because it is between them and God. I'm just providing the opportunity. Thank you so much, Yeshua. Yeshua, send your healing presence now. Thank you. Yes, Jesus the Christ, please heal the wounds in our soul. Thank you, Jesus. We receive your healing and your blessing. So be it. Swaha. And now to the prayers. Om, 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 Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahmam Tasmahi Sri Guruve Namaha. Om Suklam Bharataram Vishnum Sushivarnam Chatobhujam Prasanavaranam Dhyaye Sarva Vignyupashantaye. Om Bhurabhuva Suvaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhako Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Excellent. Well, I'm going to call this clip, this podcast, Flooding the Zone Part 2. And I start off with, I really like this guy. His name is Vince Dao, D-A-O. And I'm going to read a little bit of like a little note before this. President Trump stuns Democrat leaders as ICE agents deployed in a Boston and Chicago crime crackdown that fulfills Trump's threat to send federals to the city, while also brilliantly avoiding the potential legal challenges by addressing the crime takeover through the lens of immigration. In an odd turn of events, Jasmine Crockett, Sohran Mamdani, and J.B. Pritzker suddenly embrace radical positions on crime the very moment that Trump announces Operation Midway Blitz. So it was Operation Midway Blitz that was just rolled out or blitzed out yesterday. And in Boston, ICE announced and launched Operation Patriot 2.0. Okay, now here's Vince talking. Democrats just have a keen ability on falling for the bait so easily. They're not exactly the most mentally stable or composed or mature individuals, but you already know that. Because weeks ago, we were covering the way in which national Democrats were slightly trying to reverse their rhetoric when it came to the crime issue. This was after the massive success of the D.C. federal takeover and the fact that I think their party just understood that maybe defending the criminals is not exactly a winning position in the eyes of voters. We even have Gavin Newsom announcing he's going to be doing a statewide tough on crime campaign that ironically was very similar to Trump's federal takeover of D.C. But we know Trump is Gavin Newsom's favorite president. Gavin loves to copy everything that Trump does. But he even went out and tried to warn the National Democratic Party it was not exactly a winning issue to downplay the crime issue in the eyes of the voters. But it turns out all it took to bust open this completely fake and insincere rebrand by the Democrat Party, because we knew exactly why they were doing it. It was just for Trump to post this pretty hilarious meme and act upon that, and immediately they're right back to it. And Vince is talking about the meme of President Trump that I'm showing here in the thumbnail of this podcast. And obviously you can't see the writing above the meme, but the meme is a play on the words of Robert Duvall's character in the movie Apocalypse Now, where he says, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning." And in this meme, President Trump is saying, "I love the smell of deportation in the morning." Yeah, it's a pretty good meme. So, and by the way, listener, Apocalypse Now, if you didn't know, the movie was based on the themes and characters found in Joseph Conrad's novella called Heart of Darkness. And that's a pretty good read. I really recommend it. So, Vince is saying, crime is good. Crime's not a real issue. We even saw today, at the same exact time where Trump is announcing the beginning of Operation Midway Blitz, which is this sort of double action that can both go after immigration enforcement, but also fulfills on his threat to send more federal law enforcement to the city of Chicago because they refuse to do anything to actually help their own citizens against their crime problem. Immediately, Democrats and some of the so-called leaders of this party are rushing back to embrace their most radical crime positions because, as I said, Trump breaks these people so easily that he can do anything. He can just sneeze or something and immediately be like, sneezing is bad. That makes him a fascist. And that's what you're seeing Zohran Mamdani, for instance, the very radical candidate running for mayor of New York, after kind of staying quiet about some of his crime positions, which I called out time and time again, are the most threatening part actually about his candidacy, even more than the economics. Just today, after Trump makes this an issue, he's going out and he's talking about how much he would love to release all of the criminals back onto the streets of New York City, and proudly doing so. But he's not the only one. Representative Jasmine Crockett giving ridiculous and idiotic positions on law enforcement as usual. J.B. Pritzker, of course, is joining in and melting down. So I want to run you through this whole story in today's video, both in terms of what Trump is now doing in Chicago and the Democrat reaction it has triggered. Because again, these people, it was so easy to call out no, your little we care about crime rebrand after saying for weeks that you supported the criminals was not sincere. We'll get into it. Just today, Operation Midway Blitz has begun in Chicago, with ICE agents surging into the city. They have already made arrests of some pretty bad criminal illegals, and needless to say, liberals are not all that happy. Trump certainly is. And by the way, I'd like to point out here that this is a very smart way for Trump to kind of do the federalization of Chicago without running into the woke judges or the legal challenges, right? Because if he sends in a National Guard without the governor's approval, as he's pointed out before, he's probably going to get sued over it. He's probably going to get sued over it. They might strike it down or not. But you can send ICE into the city to do immigration enforcement. That is completely legal. That is something the Supreme Court held up today. Yay, that was such a victory. I'm going to get into that later. I'm saying that, not Vince, but yeah, I'm going to get into that later. But in the process of doing so, you're also going to have more law enforcement simply present on the streets of Chicago, which simultaneously will not just deter illegal immigrants, but can deter crime. See how he's kind of playing this smart? But anyway, that said, this here is Operation Midway Blitz, combining the sanctuary city issue with the crime issue, although they're already connected. And here's those details. Now, was from Fox News. Now, the surge has begun. You can see the new ICE vehicles on the streets here in Chicago. We're just outside the Cook County Courthouse, but that surge is part of the ICE-led Operation Midway Blitz that they say is in honor of a beautiful young Chicago woman, Katie Abraham, who was unalived by an illegal alien drunk driver back in January of this year. And while we are getting reaction from Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, who says that this blitz won't make Chicagoans safe, or won't make Chicagoans safer, let me show you this video. Early this morning, I was out with one of ICE's teams, and we arrested this individual. His name is Juan Gaspar, and he is a 43-year-old illegal alien from Mexico. He had been convicted in 2024 of forcibly sexually assaulting a child under the age of 13. He was taken, as you can see here, without incident, but this is all part of the exact sort of violent criminal illegal alien that the ICE operations hope to bring in, apprehend, and ultimately deport. And then MSNBC even said, well, you're hearing a lot of pushback, Chris, a lot of fear, and even some anger. If you talk about what we just saw here, it was another, you mentioned, third day of protests against the threat of sending more ICE agents or more federal agents for that increased immigration operation here in Chicago and the threat of National Guard. But you're also hearing that pushback from Chicago's political leaders. Mayor Brandon Johnson saying the meme that you were just talking about was beneath the dignity of the president. You had J.B. Pritzker, the governor, saying that this is something that should be taken seriously, saying that the president is threatening war on a major American city. At issue here, Chris, is not just the opposition to the increased ICE operations that are likely to come, that the governor has been warning, that he's been hearing is going to happen, is imminent here in Chicago. But it's also the threat that you're hearing of the National Guard, right? And then Vince says, well, you're already hearing some of the reactions that have gotten from Democrats, even as ICE is arresting literal child predators who are illegal aliens convicted of child predation, but somehow not deported under the Biden administration. They will sit here and tell you to your face, this is not making us safer. They will look at the insane SHOOTING and unaliving rates. And you know, unaliving is spelled MURDER. Unaliving rates, not just in Chicago, but a lot of American cities. We care about all of them. It's not just about red states or blue states here. And claim that everything is perfectly safe and we're doing a good job. Like, we know how to keep you safe. Our approach is clearly working and Trump's the really bad guy here, right? It's just utterly just ridiculous. But of course, they're continuing here. Here's the official response today at the announcement of Operation Midway Blitz by Governor J.B. Pritzker. And again, keep in mind, he is saying this as one of the very first arrests made in Operation Midway Blitz was a convicted child predator. And I'm sure he's going to be referred to as an Illinois father, quote unquote, by the Democrats here very soon. And don't get it twisted. They are protesting on behalf of not deporting any of them. They're going to claim, oh no, we just care about the innocent civilians and the people who are just working hard. They didn't do anything wrong. Really? Is that why anytime ICE shows up anywhere, you don't even care what they're doing? You protest. You try to assault them. Yeah, because listener, as you probably might know, assaults on ICE agents are up 1,000%. 1,000% from the ICE agents just doing their job. Yep. And then Vince is saying, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is your top moral crusader, right? You're claiming, you're singing in these pink vests saying, Kilmar is one of us. Kilmar is our hero. They're literally saying that, by the way, yeah. Anyways, here's his response. This is J.B. Pritzker saying this. Once again, this is not about fighting crime. Fighting crime requires support and coordination. Yet, we've experienced nothing like that over the past several weeks. Instead of taking steps to work with us on public safety, the Trump administration is focused on scaring, quote unquote, Illinoisians. Vince says, this is, of course, by the way, as you heard, while J.B. Pritzker is claiming that Trump is bringing a war to the streets of Chicago, Illinois, as if judging by the unaliving rates, there is not already a war. Right. There's not already a war happening as we speak, right? There's a very famous statistic from back in the day, actually, about how there are more unalivings happening in Chicago, like every weekend, than there were even in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's why we have the nickname Chiraq for Chicago. Yeah. That name comes from, that's where that name comes from. But, now the war is when you come in and stop the criminals. That's the problem, right? But two thoughts I have on this initially. First of all, you talk about fighting crime. Again, Democrats, you're going to sit here and tell me that your approach to fighting crime has been working. No, it hasn't. So why don't you get out of the way for once and say, because look at this, right? So even over the weekend in Chicago, 6 more unalived, 12 more injured. It's a normal weekend in Chicago. Now over Labor Day, which was 2 weekends ago, I think the number out there was 54. Yeah, 54 people, SHOOT. And I think it was 50, I'm saying this, not Vince, I think the number was 50 people unalived on that Labor Day weekend. I'm not sure, but I think that was it. It was such a high, God, it's so tragic. Anyway, Vince is saying, they said, oh, it's perfectly safe. They said it's perfectly fine. By the way, Pritzker further goes on to say, well, in order to fight crime, we need support and coordination. Yeah, well, who is refusing that? According to you as well, by the way, you claim Trump's been trying to call you to talk about National Guard and all this stuff, and you have been proudly saying, I'm not picking up the phone. Yet you're claiming it's Trump that's not coordinating with you. Now, Trump has said publicly many times, the record is there. We played the video saying he wants your support in sending National Guard and sending federal help, dingus, right? I like to note as well, by the way, that Trump recently announced, before Democrats try to say this is an issue of targeting blue states, that he plans to send in either federal agents or National Guard to clean up the streets of New Orleans in Louisiana. Louisiana is obviously a red state. But you know why that is? You know why he got the approval from that? Because the governor of Louisiana is obviously a Republican, and he said, that's perfectly fine. We very much would like to clean up New Orleans because why? Because it's not just about targeting blue states. We want all of these cities in our country to be safe. No one has ever denied, by the way, that New Orleans is a cesspool. New Orleans has a very high crime rate. It's a beautiful city. It has a lot of history. It's a shame what it's become, right? It's only you guys who melt down because when we call out a Democrat city like Chicago in a Democrat state, I should say, because they're both Democrat cities, that you claim you're being targeted. No. And frankly, I think that if Pritzker continues here and all these governors and mayors on the Democrat Party just won't do it, you know, what we should immediately perform, I think, is just send all of the National Guard to the red states and help the crime and crack down and do it. With the consent of the governors. And what will that show? Essentially, there's this national issue. It's called crime. Look at what the Republican states are doing. Look how them cooperating with the Trump administration has made these places so much better, so much cleaner, so much safer. Look how the Democrats are refusing, and see how that plays in the 2026 midterms for your party. I'm just saying, so there you have it. He is claiming that apparently he's doing such a great job of fighting crime, but as I said, talking about taking the bait here, not only is Pritzker immediately going back into that kind of circle of Democrat thinking, oh, more police doesn't make us safe. Oh, like deterring criminals doesn't make us safe. But as I said, nationally today, for some reason, on the same exact day where Midway Blitz starts, a bunch of Democrat politicians decided to absolutely lose their minds. Let's talk, for instance, about Zohran Mamdani, who, as I said in the beginning, has been a little bit quiet on this issue, but now in a roundtable interview today, which listener was yesterday, is stating as, of course, this crime issue goes national. He wants to reduce the jail population and ensure that he wants to ensure that New York courts release their suspects from jail, from incarceration faster. This is after a long string of crimes in New York City, where you've had these repeat offenders go on to unalive someone, and that includes even the Laken Riley story, if you may remember there correctly. And yet this guy, causing a lot of liabilities for the Democrats in the midterms, here he's saying that, to me, it sounds like a fantastic idea. Yes, Democrats, let's all double down on this garbage. Take a listen. And then Mamdani is saying this to a journalist or an interviewer on camera. He's saying, the jail population of Rikers, and he's referring to, in case you're not American, Rikers Island, which is a really well-known, notorious prison right off of New York City. The jail population of Rikers has increased since Eric Adams has come into office by more than 1,000 additional incarcerated New Yorkers. And what is quite staggering to me is that we know that we can reduce that jail population to less than 4,000. I mean, Vital City had an article about a number of different proposals that could reduce it to 3,700. And some of this also just we have to look at the average stay on Rikers in the 90s, which was 50 days. Now it's more than 100. There are more than 1,500 people on Rikers who have been held there for more than a year. So I do think many of the reforms that have to be made are also reforms around the court system and ensuring that people are actually having speedy trials. Vince says, yeah. So New York City's problem, according to Zohran, and again, Democrats, you're doing a great job on this crime issue. Please keep going. It's not that the judges, even as Governor Kathy Hochul called out and is actually kind of siding with the Republicans on this, it's not that the judges are letting too many of the criminals out of jail and too quickly. They're not doing it enough. We actually need more crazy criminals running around the streets of New York. And the problem is these people are being kept in jail for too long. It used to be 50 days. Now it's 100 days. Can you imagine keeping a violent criminal in jail for less than a year? The horror of this, right? And it doesn't stop. Again, as I've said, Democrats have taken the bait to immediately go back to BLM 2020 insanity. And they're not apologizing for it. Take a listen as Zoran comes out in favor of abolishing the NYPD, which is the New York Police Department's gang database. Yeah, listener, it's just unbelievable. I'm saying that. Okay, because don't you know, right, violent gangs, that's not a thing. They're just groups of teenagers wearing basketball jerseys or something. Really? Okay, take a listen. Here's Mamdani again. And the interviewer asked Mamdani, let me ask you about a bunch of different policies just to kind of get your thinking out there. If city council legislation to abolish the NYPD, New York Police Department, gang database were to pass, would you support and sign that? And then Mamdani answers, I have supported that proposal. It's one that I've supported because of the vast dragnet has meant the inclusion of New Yorkers on the basis of whether they go out late. Photos they put on social media. There's no question that we have to take gangs extremely seriously. And yet I find that a database that includes New Yorkers on such basis is one that doesn't actually do exactly that. So Vince then says, so gangs are a very serious problem, but we shouldn't do anything to take them seriously? Zoran Mamdani, ladies and gentlemen, future thought leader of the Democratic Party. Truly the voice the left wing needs today. Oh, he's so brilliant. Keep it up, Zoran. You're doing... Vince says, keep it up, Zoran. You're doing a great job. A great job at destroying the Democrat Party. The biggest imminent threat to New York City and the people of that city is that on day one, he can get in there. Just start releasing the criminals out of jail and start embracing all of the no cash bail policies, making them even worse. Because he's claiming right now New York City is being too tough on crime. That threatens everyone's lives, everyone's safety, right? That's what will really turn New York City even more than it already is into a dangerous, anarchic, violent nightmare. And yes, that obviously endangers the personal safety of everyone involved. And it's not just a Zoran issue, it's a national Democrat issue. Nationally speaking, Trump has been very smart on this. He understands it. He understands, first of all, crime is a serious issue. It's something that affects Americans directly, something Americans care about. And simultaneously, it's also winning politics. So you can do two good things at the same time here, because he's also successfully managing to get Democrats to go into the 2026 midterm screaming, "We love crime. We love crime." And that's only slight hyperbole for what's actually happening here. Because Zoran, now with these ideas, about to be the ambassador of Democrat leadership and the future and all this garbage. But even the so-called Democrat establishment really is not acting all that differently, right? They're claiming this garbage like more police doesn't make us safe. Pritzker is making a big deal out of it. Take a listen as well to another future leader of the Democrat Party, Jasmine Crockett, who has a great take here on crime. Today, reacting, by the way, to Trump's recent policies on this issue, and she has a big-brained one here. Law enforcement is not meant to prevent crime, according to Jasmine Crockett. Clap it up. Brightest opinion I've ever heard. Take a listen. And then here's Jasmine. Here's Jasmine speaking on looked like a Zoom call. Okay, here's Jasmine saying, I want to be clear that, like law enforcement, isn't to prevent crime. Law enforcement solves crime, okay? This is what they are supposed to do. They are supposed to solve crimes, not necessarily prevent them from happening per se. And then Vince says, look at them just nodding their heads along in the video. Yes, yes, Jasmine, you're so intelligent. You're the future of the party. Vince, an idiot. They're meant to do both. You understand that they're meant to deter crime from happening, right? Sometimes law enforcement does actually prevent crime from happening, by the way, or they catch it in the act, right? They respond to the scene actively. And yes, in the cases when they don't, they are meant to solve the crime. That is also true, sure. But the reason she is saying this is because she's trying to make the argument, and this is important for people to understand, that if Trump sends in more federal agents, if there's a greater police presence, that's not going to reduce the crime rate. That's the argument she's trying to make. Except, as you see in the fact that D.C. had basically 0 unalivings ever since the federal takeover. I think carjackings went down like 86%. Every violent crime is way down ever since the very moment that they did that. Yes, actually law enforcement does prevent crime, right? It's indeed common sense, okay? And people know it is common sense. That's why, for instance, defunding the police or abolishing the police or all this stupid, crazy garbage that Democrats said back in 2020 was never a popular position back then. But now in 2025, after retreating from it for a couple of years because they thought maybe they gained a brain for a little bit, are now going back to it because of Trump derangement syndrome. Yeah, listener, TDS is real. It is really real. It's not a joke. It's really sad, actually, but it's really real. Okay, anyway, turns out Operation Midway Blitz is already a massive success in directly removing safety threats and violent people and predators, many other bad things, right, from our communities. So take a listen. Here's Tom Homan, border czar, on the news. And he's saying, we're at war with the criminal cartels, and Governor Pritzker protects criminal illegal alien public safety threats every day in that state, along with Mayor Johnson. We've proved that. The first week of the administration, I went to Chicago. I started on operations there. The first day, we arrested 9 sexual predators, most of them child RAPISTS. We arrested 9 members of TDA, and that's Tren de Aragua out of Venezuela, that cartel, listener, in case you don't know, but I'm sure you do. Several of those TDA members had a pistol, an illegal pistol with a switch on it, which makes that pistol fully automatic. We arrested 2 illegal aliens that had a homicide conviction. That was the first day in Chicago. So, President Trump and this administration, yeah, we're at war with the criminal cartels and those who want to unalive and RAPE American citizens. You're damn right. And then Fox News says this. ICE has detained the man charged in connection with the unaliving of a missing Antioch woman. The Department of Homeland Security says agents arrested Jose Luis Gonzalez Mendoza yesterday afternoon at the market in Chicago, and he remains in ICE custody. They say he is an undocumented immigrant from Mexico. Now, you remember back in April, Mendoza Gonzalez was charged with concealing a corpse, abusing a corpse, and obstruction of justice in the unaliving of Megan Boss. Police in Waukegan found Boss's body in a container in Mendoza Gonzalez's yard. She'd initially been reported missing back in March. God bless her. Oh my goodness. Whew, that's so terrible. So then, and this is from yesterday, September 8th, from Tyson de la Cruz, and I really like him as well. And he's saying, he titled his little report here, 51 arrests expose cartel's grip on Kentucky's drug crisis. and this was on the news and on Kentucky, a news channel station. It says, a 3-state sweep by the DEA leads to the arrest of 51 people with ties to a Mexican drug cartel. And then Tyson says, America, the DEA just delivered a crushing blow to the Sinaloa cartel with 51 arrests across 3 states, seizing 133 firearms, nearly 9,000 counterfeit pills, and 78,000 in cash. But here's what is really shocking. This massive operation happened in Kentucky, Tennessee, and West Virginia, proving that Mexican cartels have infiltrated the American heartland. And get this, Kentucky has one of the highest opioid use disorders in the entire nation, with over 2.5% of the population struggling with addiction. And then on the news again it said, DEA Louisville confiscated kilos of drugs, pills, GUNS, and cash. WDRBS's Valerie Chin explained how it's all tied to one of the most powerful drug cartels in Mexico, the Sinaloa cartel. 14 arrests in Kentucky, and it's not over yet. And then Tyson's talking. Tyson de la Cruz here. This story shows exactly how the Sinaloa cartel has turned America's heartland into their personal drug distribution network, and why Kentucky is paying the ultimate price. Let me break down this massive operation for you. The DEA's Louisville Field Division coordinated with federal, state, and local law enforcement to take down what Special Agent in Charge Jim Scott called a significant threat to public safety and national security. 133 firearms, 17K in cash, and nearly 9,000 pills were all seized as part of this 3-state drug bust. And the DEA says it all has ties to the Sinaloa Mexican cartel. And here's what they seized in one coordinated sweep. Excuse me. With 51 people arrested who have direct ties to the Sinaloa cartel. So 133 firearms, that's military-level arsenal. Really. Investigators say one man was arrested in Louisville, but DEA, and I forgot to say for people that might not know, who maybe aren't American, DEA means Drug Enforcement Agency. But DEA isn't releasing the names of any of the suspects. The 51 people face a wide range of drug trafficking charges. Nearly 9,000 counterfeit pills, fake pills that could unalive you in one dose. Oh my gosh. And over 78,000 in cash, and that's just what they found. More than 50 kilograms of meth, cocaine, and fentanyl stopped from hitting the streets. And then Agent Scott saying, a lot of people think that activity stops at the southwest border, but the drugs that the Sinaloa cartel is producing makes its way across the country and over 3 states, and they're certainly not immune to that. And then Tyson says, now here's the part that should terrify you. Agent Scott revealed that 95% of the drugs in Kentucky, Tennessee, and West Virginia come from just 2 Mexican cartels. Think about that. That's 95% from just 2 cartels. And listen to the 2 cartels are the Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco cartel. And Agent Scott again says, and those drugs fuel the violence. They profit on the backs of the families that have lost loved ones throughout our communities. And Tyson says, the Sinaloa cartel isn't just selling drugs. They're running complete criminal enterprises. They are the largest producers and traffickers of fentanyl, the stuff that's unaliving Americans every single day. They're moving meth, cocaine, heroin, and marijuana across state lines, using violence to intimidate civilians, government officials, and journalists. Money laundering operations worth billions of dollars, extortion and theft of petroleum and natural resources, weapons trafficking, hence the 133 firearms, human smuggling and prostitution networks, and illegal wildlife trade. They're into everything. And then on the news it says, the 51 people face a wide range of drug trafficking charges. Tyson says, here's where the story gets personal for Kentucky families. According to a new national report, Kentucky has one of the highest rates of opioid use disorders in the United States. This 2.5% of the population with it, they're aged 12 years or older, is struggling with addictions. That puts Kentucky in the same category as New Hampshire, Nevada, and Massachusetts. This bust alone stopped more than 50 kilograms of meth, coke, and fentanyl from hitting the streets. So the numbers here are staggering. 1,410 Kentuckians unalived from overdose DEATHS in 2024. 1,984 overdose DEATHS in 2023, down from 2,135 in the year 2022. Then Ben Mudd from Kentucky Pharmacists Association explained why the DEATHS, or unalivings, are declining, but addiction isn't. He says there's so much naloxone out there, and people are educated perhaps. Perhaps people aren't using it alone. All these programs have been put in place and have led to fewer overdoses, but not necessarily a reduced number of people with opioid use disorder. Now here's something that should scare every parent in America. The drugs coming from the Sinaloa cartel are more potent than ever before. Well, and this is Agent Scott talking again, well, methamphetamine is probably at the highest purity that we've seen it. It's the meth that we seize, and it's often 95% and higher in purity. The marijuana that we're seeing on the streets is probably the highest potency that we've ever seen. And then Tyson's saying, this isn't your grandfather's marijuana or your uncle's meth from the 1990s. These are weapons-grade drugs designed to create instant addiction and maximum profit for the cartels. And those 9,000 counterfeit pills they seized, they look exactly like legitimate prescription drugs, but contain fentanyl that can unalive you with a single pill. Young people think that they're buying Adderall or Percocet online, but they're actually buying a DEATH sentence manufactured by the Mexican cartels. And Agent Scott says, the arrests that we've made run the gamut from somebody that's selling drugs on a corner, maybe in a more rural part of our region, to somebody that's in charge of bringing those drugs from, let's say, a hub city. Scott says his office isn't finished investigating yet, and he believes more arrests are coming. Scott says the job is becoming more and more difficult, citing a rise in the distribution of synthetic drugs. These drugs are becoming more and more deadly. Tyson, in this one operation, you're not dealing with street-level dealers. You're dealing with an organized criminal army. The Sinaloa cartel has turned Kentucky into a distribution hub for their poison, exploiting a state that already struggles with the highest rates of opioid addiction in America. But here's the hope in all this. Law enforcement is fighting back with intelligence, coordination, and determination. With DEA, state police, and local sheriffs, when DEA, state police, and local sheriffs work together, they can take down even the most sophisticated cartel operations. The message to the Sinaloa cartel is clear. Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia are not your territory. American communities are not your market, and American families are not your victims. Agent Scott said it best. The Sinaloa cartel's tentacles spread far and deep. No community is spared, big or small, rural or urban, but neither is law enforcement's reach. I mean, isn't that shocking, listener? It's just unbelievable. It is really scary that these things look exactly like legitimate pills that people take, and so they're just they're just not even knowing what they're doing with that. What risk is there? So then this is from yesterday, September 8th. It's from it's called ICE Operations on YouTube. That's the name of the channel, ICE Operations. And then it said, breaking news, a massive joint operation between the DEA and ICE has just smashed a 200-member cartel pipeline operating in Boston's backyard. Authorities confirmed this was the biggest cartel crackdown in New England history, uncovering drugs, GUNS, and piles of cash hidden inside stash houses across Massachusetts. Federal agents say the cartel had been funneling narcotics, weapons, and illegal cash through Boston neighborhoods for years, using local fronts to launder money and recruit young members. In a coordinated pre-dawn raid, heavily armed ICE and DEA task forces swept through dozens of locations, arresting suspects and seizing high-powered rifles, fentanyl, cocaine, and over $15 million in illegal currency. The cartel, believed to be linked to international crime syndicates stretching from Mexico to Venezuela, was targeting Boston as a distribution hub for the entire Northeast. Agents revealed that cartel operations used suburban homes, warehouses, and even construction companies as cover for their trafficking operations. Officials hailed the operation as a major victory for law and order, praising the collaboration between ICE, DEA, FBI, and local police. The bust is expected to cripple cartel influence in the region and send a strong message. No criminal network is safe in America's cities. Supporters of the crackdown say this proves the U.S. is serious about fighting back against cartels, drugs, and gangs that poison communities. Critics argue that the operation could trigger cartel retaliation, but law enforcement insists America will not back down. And then I'm going to say, just because I'm putting this in here, guys, that I'm sure you know that the Supreme Court yesterday ruled 6-3 to greenlight President Trump's massive illegal alien enforcement operations in Los Angeles. So now ICE can once again go to Home Depot, car washes, etc. They can stop people who don't speak English, that are working a job, etc. And it's all back on. So, of course, Karen Bass is furious about this. And I would say, and Gavin Newsom is furious about this. But as I've spoken before, if you listen to my earlier clips, that Gavin Newsom is a 2.0. It's not the original, and I'm not going to go into it again for the fourth or fifth time. You can listen to my earlier clips, some recent ones that I just put out if you want to hear longer stories about it. But I knew Gavin Newsom personally, and this is not the original Gavin Newsom, okay? So anyway, so I call him 2.0. He could be a 3.0, but anyway. Now, regarding that Supreme Court victory, 6-3, to allow ICE to do their job again in Los Angeles, Department of Homeland Security, DHS, they made an official statement to Fox. A win for the safety of Californians and the rule of law. DHS law enforcement will not be slowed down, and it will continue to arrest and remove the unalivers and rapists and gang members, and other criminal illegal aliens that Karen Bass continues to give safe harbor. Woo, that's a direct quote from DHS. Okay, and then President Trump posted at Real Donald Trump on X. He posted, Michigan Democrats have been caught laundering $5 billion in taxpayer money. Eric Dougherty, on a blue checkmark account on X, posted, wow, President Trump just posted that Michigan Democrats have been caught red-handed laundering $5 billion in taxpayer dollars. More than 4,000 fake phantom jobs, allegedly. 4,000 fake phantom jobs allegedly used to siphon taxpayer dollars into non-existent programs, questionable GENDER surgeries, and dubious arts and culture grants. The fraud has to end. Also from Eric Dougherty, yesterday he put, breaking, Senate leader John Thune is set to invoke the, quote, NUCLEAR option, end quote, as soon as tomorrow, which would have been today, to finally ram through President Trump's nominees. and that was from the Daily Caller. And this would change Senate rules to allow through over 100 Trump nominees much quicker. And then Eric posted the bottom of his quote there from X, "Do it, no more waiting," with lots of exclamation points. Also breaking from yesterday, the Supreme Court sides with President Trump and allows him to fire a Democrat on the Federal Trade Commission. And The Hill, even though we don't really like The Hill, but The Hill posted this with the title of the article called John Roberts, which, as you might know, a listener, is a U.S. Chief Justice, Supreme Court Justice John Roberts. The Hill had this as their lead article headline: John Roberts temporarily allows Trump to fire FTC commissioner. Or commission, to fire FTC commission. Okay, so let me see. Did I have any more about that? No, I did not. Woo! Let me take a sip of water here for a sec. That's so good. So, guys, I put this together just like I did on Flooding the Zone, which I didn't call part 1, but obviously it's part 1 because I'm calling this Flooding the Zone part 2, because I wanted to have this as like kind of a touchstone to kind of place together, different busts and reveals in different parts of the United States. As you can see, the overwhelming cartel infiltration from Mexico to Venezuela, all across the United States of America, in all different places, from big cities to little regional areas. And it's like so shocking to uncover this, how much this needs to be handled and cleaned up. But it's getting done bit by bit. So I'm going to end this clip like I do with all of my clips with the closing prayer, which is in Sanskrit and Telugu. And what I'm saying is, God bless all beings in all worlds. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe. That really helps me out. Thank you so much. So here's the prayer. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yes, peace, peace, peace. God bless you and yours. I'm sending much love and big hugs to you and yours. I'll see you when I see you, and bye-bye for now.